For Crema Media's Polita Martin Joaquino, Jens Pedersen joins me in studio to discuss the latest situation in Sudan and South Sudan. Welcome, Jens.
Thank you, Martin.
Jens, you argue in a recent article that there is a change of mood in Sudan, with many people believing that the government of Omar Hassan el-Bashir may be toppled. What evidence do you have to advance that view? And do you see this as a later phase of the Arab Spring?
Well, the pressure is certainly increasing and has increased in Khartoum. There is increased number of street protests by mainly youth and women organizations, still limited number, but happening in various locations in Khartoum and other larger cities. In Sudan, there is some frictions within the governing National Congress Party, so certainly the pressure is rising. Whether it's a Sudanese version of the Arab Spring is difficult to say. I'm not sure the Arab Spring is a useful term in that sense. What's more pertinent in Sudanese consciousness is past intifadas and revolutions, civil uprisings, which in 64 and 85 managed to overthrow despotic regimes. So such notions plays a bigger role than perhaps the notion of the Arab Spring.
I see. And how do you see the mounting pressure in Khartoum affecting our ongoing negotiations between South Sudan and Sudan?
Well, it may potentially affect the negotiations in two ways. One, simply because the economic realities and the pressure mounting on the National Congress Party might somehow facilitate the negotiations because they are under pressure internally as well. Another way it might implicate on the negotiation is if SPLM from Juba in South Sudan perceives this increased pressure as a weakness on behalf of the National Congress Party, and then may try to get more out of the negotiations, which potentially may not be a good idea. But those are the two ways in which it may influence the current negotiations.
I see. And what do you see as the main sticking points in the negotiations?
Well, the immediate concern is security arrangements, which involves some disagreements on security personnel left in the RBA area, a potential demilitarized zone of the yet to be agreed upon border, and then after that, more well-known issues such as the oil, citizenship, and the border itself.
Now, you argue that it's unwise for this Sudan People's Liberation Army to negotiate directly with the government in Khartoum, rather than through the African Union. Why do you say that?
It may be wise, it may not. Lately, the two parties have come together. There seems to be some progress in the negotiations, perhaps facilitated by meetings between the two parties only without the African Union. So it may work. On the other hand, Juba has to be careful because in the past they have accused Mbeki and the African Union High Implementation Panel of being biased. And in that sense, they have to balance being accommodating of the international community and the African Union towards maintaining some diplomatic legitimacy as well. So they have a balance to walk, so to say.
I see. And finally, Jens, can you comment on the loss of a short-term oil revenue? What effect that's going to have on both Sudan and South Sudan?
Well, there's no doubt that the current economic challenges facing both South Sudan and Sudan is due to the loss of acute revenue since South Sudan stopped oil exports in January, and to a lesser extent in Sudan due to international sanctions. We also see both Juba and Khartoum now using a language of austerity in order to patch up the economy and try and rectify, and on a political level trying to convince the population of scaling down budgets. There is no doubt that in the short term an agreement on oil, of resuming oil exports, is what will financially save both Juba and Khartoum. The challenge, of course, of that is that it will require political will and not the usual hostility the two parties have had against each other. And so far, that political will may not have been present, but the economic reality may facilitate such a political will.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. That was Jens Pedersen speaking about the current situation in the Sudans. I am Martin Joaquin in Johannesburg. Thank you.